just felt bad though. She's like, cool, you know.
Good morning, everyone. This is the TIRZ Reinvestment Zone number 2 meeting. I want to call the meeting to order. It is about 9:07. Councilman Smith could not be with us today. I'm Vice Chairman Mike Pusley. Ms. Werter, would you please call the roll?
The Chairman Greg Smith is absent. Board members Roland Barrera is absent. Judge Barbara Canales, absent. Brent Chesney is absent. Paulette Wajardo,
Present.
Gil Hernandez,
Here.
Michael Hunter,
Here.
Billy Lerma,
Here.
John Martinez, Ben Molina,
Present.
Jim Needham, absent. Sylvia Tryon Oliver. Miss Oliver? I know she's here. I get maybe she's not. Can you unmute yourself, Miss Oliver, if you're muted? Okay. I'll just we'll try again, but my understanding is she is online. Vice Chair Mike Pusley.
Here.
Dr. Lori Turner.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment, Ms. Werter?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyone here want to make public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number D, minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Board, anyone have anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion. We approve the minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now move to the financial report. Staff.
Good morning. Heather Hurlbert, Director of Finance. I'm not seeing the presentation pulled up. Eddie, do you know if yours is up? Do you know if by the presentation?
Okay, it'll be up in just a moment. There it
Okay.
is. Yeah, it should be up in just a moment.
It's pretty cool.
That is cool. That is neat. Has a neat effect, right? Not what we were looking for, but interesting.
Okay, well, we will just go ahead. It's very short. I believe y'all have your packets in front of you. So for TIRZ number 2, we are looking at our financial position for the 7 months ended April 30th. And so since this TIRZ is based off of property taxes, we have collected the majority of the revenue that we will collect for this year. So we started out the year with a $1.7 million fund balance. We've collected almost $4.4 million out of the $4.8 million that was budgeted for the year. So we are very close to our budget. The property taxes will continue to trickle in. Awesome. Okay, next slide, please. There we go. So the property taxes will continue to pick up a little bit along the way. The expenditures to date, the primary expenditure is our debt payments for the Packery Channel. And we pay those in 2 payments. So the first payment has been made, which is primarily interest, and the second payment will be made, I believe, in August, which will be the large principal and interest payment. We have charged administrative services to reimburse the city for city employee time. And then we do keep reserves of about $2 million. One is $1.5 million for our bond reserve, and the other is a $500,000 reserve for our maintenance. So we ended April with almost $6 million in our fund balance. Next slide, please. So for CIP projects, we have a total of 16.8, almost 16.9 million that's been transferred to the CIP fund for the projects that are listed. To date, we have spent 2.3 million of that 16.8, and we have $14.5 million available to be spent on those projects. So that does conclude my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Or any questions?
Can I just highlight, Chairman?
Yes.
The notice on that second slide that Heather went over, there's 2 line items for the Packery Channel. So as we begin to work with council on trying to fund the restoration that was caused by Hurricane Harvey,
Right.
I just want to point out there's a little over 8 million, 8.5 million available here for repairs and dredging. The dredging's estimated to be about that 4 million. That's a older assessment, so it'll be in and around that number. But the restoration work is estimated to be about 20 million at this point, excluding the dredging.
Yeah.
So we have 4.5 of that, so the gap is about 15 million
For Packery.
for Packery.
So it's up to 20?
Yeah, because the original
Yeah.
bid, the original estimates from, I guess, 4 years ago was
Yeah.
4 years ago.
15 point something, close to
Yes.
16. So with inflation,
Right.
you know,
So
supply
what, I
chain
mean, Peter,
issues.
what is your foreseeable, I guess, plan? I mean, I
Yeah,
know
right.
we've been looking and it's
We're
been a
done
lot of
looking, so
time.
the action plan is this, is that we're going to have to pay for it ourselves. The federal government, we're continuing to
Right.
move through this maze, if you will. But
Right.
I have no confidence in the ability to get the money. We went from FEMA to
Right.
Army Corps, back to FEMA, back to Army Corps, and we're back at FEMA. And so we're pursuing that track, but at the same time, we're putting the RFP out for construction services. And we can start with the 4.5 million, and then we would issue other debt from the city backed by the TIRZ, certificates of obligation that
Yes.
would be backed by the TIRZ.
Yes,
We'll
exactly.
do that next spring if the, what is the?
If FEMA, yeah.
If FEMA doesn't come through, we'll issue the debt next spring.
Which we're probably counting on just
Yeah.
them not coming through.
Right. In our debt plan, we have the assumption that we would issue 15 million in certificates of obligation
Right.
for the repair. If you were to go down there and look, it's really an embarrassment, the way
Yeah.
that thing looks. And the one side where the sidewalk would allow you to walk to the beach has a huge sinkhole, so you have to get off the sidewalk and walk around. There's big
Right.
orange Jersey berries in the way at this point, so. I just want to, that's what we're working on behind, kind of behind
So,
the,
but that's the path we're going on.
Yeah.
We're just going to go ahead and.
yeah. It's a beautiful
Take care.
facility, and it should look nice for anybody that comes down here, or even for our own residents, so,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Peter, I would just say I agree with your path to the solution, but I would say that we continue to, knock on the door. I mean, it might be possible down the road we'd get a reimbursement. We did it to county one time. We fixed it, and FEMA ended up reimbursing us down the road somewhere. So we can do that.
And Tammy Embry and Jeff Edmonds are still continuing down the path of FEMA, so we are still trying to exhaust that path. And we will continue to, until we get a final absolutely no, we'll continue pursuing that funding.
Okay. And Peter, I'm sorry. Someone in the back, who's?
Oh, hey, Tammy's there.
Tammy, maybe you can give us a little bit better
okay.
update on that.
Oh, hi, Tammy. I'm sorry. I don't have my distance glasses on, so sorry.
We actually have a meeting with FEMA next Monday. Where we
What's
think
that?
we're gonna get, we actually have a meeting with.
Can you
FEMA
speak
next
on the
Monday.
mic, Ms.
Come to the
Embry?
mic, please, for those of us who belong to the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Club.
We actually have a FEMA meeting with FEMA next Monday. After we got that core, when we discussed this in March, we thought things were on a really good path with the core. And then when it hit some snags, when it went through the clearance process at division, that knocked back some things. So that actually took away FEMA's declaration of duplicative authority. So by the Corps saying it's actually not eligible for Corps assistance, it goes back to FEMA. FEMA has now requested a meeting with us to discuss further discuss eligibility, and we actually got some indications early this morning verbally. Until I see anything in writing, I'm not going to believe it on this project. But we might have some better news. But we are continuing down that path with
So
FEMA.
Tammy, and I know you will, but if you'll send Peter
Yeah,
that
yeah.
update. then
And I
Peter
think
can-
Jeff copied you this morning on that note from.
And on that, let's just say we move forward with COs and all that, and this happens to come through later. We can still reimburse ourselves, so to speak?
Yes, we can still get reimbursed.
Okay.
Yeah, we can
We'll
reimburse.
actually have to have an answer from FEMA about August. That's the deadline for all Harvey projects. So we will know
Oh,
one
okay.
way or the other.
Great. Okay, good. Thanks, Tammy.
But in the meantime, we put the project out
Yeah.
for bid, right? So because it's already designed, the
We already did that?
reconstruction. Yeah, so we put the design out for bid
When was that?
recently,
In the last,
Like,
last week or two.
last,
Oh, okay.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, cool.
okay,
Yeah.
great.
I just have one other question. On this line item for the dredging, is that Packery Channel specifically?
Yes.
Okay. So are we intending on taking that dredge material and using it to replenish the beach?
Yes, Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the dredge material, unlike when we dredged McGee Beach one time.
right,
It wasn't suitable to put, we did put it back on the beach, but it wasn't the best choice.
right.
So that sand is suitable to nourish the section of the beach by the seawall.
Okay.
That gets real narrow. It
Yeah.
needs to be renourished to kind of push it back out.
So we've had, I know I have, I'm sure others in the council have had questions about what we're going to do about replenishing the beach along the seawall.
Right, well, that's part of the action plan is to use that
When will
dredge
that
material.
dredging start, do you know?
I think it's restore the walls first, and then the dredging is second, so probably over a year from now.
Over a year from now? Okay. Okay. Any other questions? If not, we do not require action on the financial report, so we'll move on. We do not have an executive session, as I understand it. We'll move to item G3, motion to approve rules of procedure for tax increment reinvestment zone number 2 and provide an alternate method in which items are placed on a meeting agenda. Randy?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Vice Chair and board members. Randy Almaguer, Senior Management Analyst. So yes, the purpose of this item is to change the method in how items are placed on the agenda. Currently, Board Chair and City Manager have that authority of placing items on the agenda. What staff is recommending is to really standardize this. I believe in talking with the City Secretary's office, having 4 members placing an item on agenda. This motion passed for TIRZ 4 back in October of 2020, so just trying to streamline everything. So what would happen is a board member wishing to place an item on an agenda would request this item 7 days prior to the meeting. At that time, city manager or the designee would then reach out to other board members and ask for their participation in that request. And with that said, that concludes my presentation.
Questions?
No, I'd just like to comment that this is, Rebecca, correct, this is just to keep all of our committees and boards consistent?
Right,
Is that
so
correct?
as Randy mentioned, the TIRZ 4 did approve something similar, and the plan was to go ahead and standardize our boards. So the TIRZ 3, and you'll see on the TIRZ 2 and the TIRZ 3 agendas will have a similar action on them. So it's just to standardize the way we handle placing items on an agenda.
Great.
Well, now we can go stand out in the rain.
Attention please, there has been a report of an emergency. Proceed calmly to the nearest exit and leave.
Do we really need to? Can we finish? Can we finish real quick? Right? Exactly.
We had a fire alarm here, or some kind of an alarm, so we're going to recess the meeting briefly. Thank you.
Exit and leave the building immediately. Do not use the elevators. Use stairwells where necessary. All handicapped
No action today.
Okay.
On your deal.
Oh, you have to bring it back, okay.
Okay, the fun and excitement's over, so we're back in session. Randy, were you
was done.
complete?
I was, yeah,
Okay.
I concluded mine, sir.
All right, I'm going, if, any
I'll
other
move.
questions?
Oh, no. I was
Okay.
going to motion to approve.
To approve? We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? We have a second? I just want to add one quick thing, if I could, Mr. Zanoni. We should really look and make sure that the executive session language matches what we're doing on our council meetings and everywhere else. And if we're going to have an executive session at a TIRZ meeting, whatever's going to be discussed should be properly noticed in the executive session language.
But Vice Chair, I've looked at that language and compared it to the council agenda, so
I
it will
can't
match.
hear
with
you.
the-
Your mic must not be on.
It's on. Oh, that's weird.
Turn this up.
I
No,
can't hear.
I know. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Try.
So I've looked at the language, and it will match the council agenda next month. So
Okay.
it'll be exactly the same.
Okay, very good. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same motion.
No, I mean, I'm just
You already
following
voted one way, Mary. You can't change your vote. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to our presentation items. Number 4, presentation on proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 reinvestment zone number 2 budget.
Good morning, Vice Chair and board members. Eddie Houlihan with the Office of Management and Budget. I have a short PowerPoint here for you today. First, we'll go into the proposed budgeted revenues for FY22. These numbers are based on the preliminary roll we received from the appraisal district. So the values did go from $518.8 million certified in 2021 to 567.5 of the preliminary number for the FY22, or an increase of 9.4% in the values. So the revenues come from the 3 participating entities, or the city, the Nueces County, and the hospital district. The revenue projected for the city is $3.1 million. For the county is $1,475,000. And for the hospital district, $538,613. Small amount of interest rates, as you know, are very low. And proposed revenue budget for FY22 of $5,121,746. Not many expenditures, just a debt payment and a transfer to the general fund for administrative services. So the debt transfer projected for 22 is $1,683,000. That includes principal and interest. And then the transfer to the general fund for administrative service charges, $71,051. Now, just an overview. We expect to end the FY21 with a fund balance of $4,515,879. Then in 22, as we went over, the projected revenue of $5,121,000, expenditures of $1,754,000, and a projected ending fund balance at the end of 22 of $7,883,000. With the 2 reserves there, a fund balance for the bond reserve of $1,500,000 and the maintenance reserve of $500,000. So I'll stand, no action on this item. I'll stand by for any questions you might have on the budget.
Questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much. Oh, we
Councilmember.
have one, I'm sorry. Oh, Councilman Hernandez.
In your budget, you don't have any future expenditures, so assuming that we don't do any more projects, what liabilities or unfunded projects do we have that need to be?
What unfunded projects? We do have, as city manager mentioned, the PACRE.
Okay, well, so what would that total be, considering the $7.8 million fund balance?
Well, we expect, I think the total estimate for the project is a little over $20 million.
And of which 5 million is funded, so that's a balance of 15, so you have 7.8, so you have kind of an unfunded balance of about 7 million.
Right.
Okay,
Correct.
that's it. Nothing else?
I believe that's all that's in the project plan,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then you also have the $1.5 million debt service and maintenance, what is it called?
Well, that's included, that's in that
Reserve.
7.8.
Is that included in the 7.8?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's in part of the 7.8.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? So do you carry a line item for the encumbered funds?
Yes, all the, in FY '20, we transferred like 15.9 million over to the capital budget.
Right.
So those funds are over in the capital budget now, and there are there's, I think, about 8 million unencumbered for dredging and the revetment, but the encumbered funds are over in the capital side.
So all of the funds required for the Packery Channel are encumbered at this point?
Not all of them. There's about 8 million that's
About
not
8 million,
encumbered yet
yeah.
for
Yeah.
for
Because of
dredging.
the increases.
Only 8 of the 24, 25 or so is encumbered.
Okay. All right, very good. Okay, board, any other questions? If not, we'll move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 5, discussion of expiration of tax increment reinvestment zone number 2 for the island TIRZ.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Your agenda does say that Randy would be giving this presentation, but I will be giving it this morning. So, next slide, please. So this item was brought to the board several months ago when we last met about the extension of the TIRZ. So the TIRZ does expire December 31st, 2022. We will be retiring the bonds in September of 2022. There had been a question on whether or not it was eligible to be extended. I believe the board members did receive a memo from council saying that, yes, it is eligible legally to be extended, and so we could move forward that if the board chooses to do so. Next slide, please. So this is the legal ease of how we would, of extending it. This is directly from the Texas Tax Code. Next slide, please. So the first step, we would need to, first of all, decide that we were going to extend it, and then we would need to update the financing plan. So the project and financing plan. So the project and financing plan lays out what projects are eligible to be funded through the TIRZ. And so these are the requirements. We went over this last time, but one of the key things is making sure that we have an updated list of the plan's projects and estimated project costs to include in the project plan. We do not anticipate in issuing any TIRZ bonds. So one of the things that the city manager did discuss was that, we're looking at issuing possibly certificates of obligations, which would be considered self-supporting by revenues from the TIRZ, where we would not anticipate issuing TIRZ bonds. TIRZ bonds a lot of times have a higher interest rate on them and then require a reserve that must be kept within the TIRZ. And so you are able to issue certificates of obligations backed by the revenue from the TIRZ versus a TIRZ bond. So we would need to make sure also that the entities who are participating decide what increment that they would want to contribute to the fund. So right now, I believe all entities are contributing at 100%. And we see that this TIRZ is producing about $5 million worth of revenue currently. And so dependent on what the project plan is and how much revenue we anticipate needing to support the project plan, that contribution percentage could be modified from 100 down to 0. And so that's something that we would need to discuss, that the entities would need to decide. And then the zone can be extended for up to a period of 20 years. Next slide, please. So in the project plan, you would need to decide what projects would be included, showing, the map. This is the map that needs to go in there. Any proposed changes to zoning ordinances, I believe, we'd have to decide, our board would have to decide with those projects, would there be a need for that? Looking at just infrastructure projects through Packery Channel or in and around Packery Channel, that would probably not be necessary. a list of the estimated non-project cost, and so that's the administrative cost that is transferred back to the city. And then if there was any type of relocation, which I would not anticipate, we do need to have a statement in there on what we would do if we had to relocate people. Next slide, please. And so I think Councilmember Hernandez had asked about, possible other projects that we currently are not in the budget, but some of the things that we have discussed is, the ongoing repair of the damage caused by Hurricane Harvey to Packery Channel, just ongoing Packery Channel improvements, or Packery channel improvements, so improvements to the actual channel, improvement to park amenities, the ongoing need to dredge the channel, and other projects that have been discussed internally. Next slide, please. So the procedure for extending the TIRZ would, again, updating the project plan, deciding on the contribution percentage. We would need to publish a public notice of hearing for the creation or extension of the TIRZ, hold the public hearing, designate the board, and then finalize the project and financing plan for council approval. Next slide, please. So our next steps would be, and it is a staff recommended that we extend the TIRZ. We would need to make sure that other entities are participating, are willing to participate in this extension. And if they are, then the recommendation is that we extend it to continue supporting the Packery Channel projects. We need to update the project plan, and then the contribution percentage may need to be adjusted depending on the needs for funding of the decided project plan. So that does conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, questions? Councilman Hernandez?
In the memo that we received, and I'm surprised it wasn't attached here, it said that we did not have to abide by the legislation of the TIRZ. Can you explain that, please?
So, and Amy may be able to expand on that a little bit. It's tied to the legislation when it was created versus what the legislation reads now. Is that correct?
The section that allows for extension does not specifically state that it must still meet the categories that were required for the time, at the time of creation, if that's what you're asking.
That's correct.
It's
So
not specifically stated. That's
do we meet any of the criteria that's needed to establish a TIRZ in this area?
Yes, I would argue that it still does meet those criteria.
And what criteria?
It's open land, primarily open land. There would still be issues regarding various things that need to be fixed, particularly with the Schlitterbahn coming down. We're going to have even more open land that might require infrastructure in order to be developed.
So open land is,
If you look at the creation ordinance from 2000, we listed that the land was primarily undeveloped open land, and that there were issues including connection of streets and drainage that applied, that might still apply. There were others in the list. Those are the two that come to mind.
did we have projects address those connections or drainage?
We have had some, but we haven't had.
I mean, but what specifically?
The Park Road 22 bridges does go over that canal, and so that was one of the projects that was
Well,
in
the
project plan.
that was an extension of what could have been just a culvert. But I mean, what other specifics? I mean, from what I remember, some of the discussions about creating it had to do with building sidewalks because there was no sidewalks, but I don't recall any sidewalk projects. Has there been any sidewalk projects?
I don't believe so. I can't speak to historically. I don't believe so, though.
I know there was a crosswalk, and I think there might have been some associated sidewalks, but I don't recall what street that was.
And we can definitely bring that back to you.
You know, I'm concerned that it doesn't necessarily meet the heart of the legislation, and that it could make us vulnerable to lawsuits. But if we have, I read through it. Tax incremental reinvestment zone. I don't know if this necessarily meets what the intent of that was. There's not a lot of blight. We're stretching to meet what that means. I'd ask that we get a second opinion on whether or not that is the case. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I just have a couple. So clearly, specifically, one of the things that we're concerned about continuing funding for through this TIRZ is the rebuilding the Packery Channel. And as you've indicated, Peter, we
Right.
have some funds that we still are going to need to acquire to complete that project.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the Packery Channel, the amenities around there, there's a parking lot, there's a boat ramp, there's a pavilion that was built. If we were to go down there today, you wouldn't even know it's the city's. There's still work to be done, like signage, other amenities. So, right.
So we have
We don't have a budget or a set of laid-out projects,
our way to
but
pay for it.
yes.
Okay. So we could look at the boundary size of the existing TIRZ, could we not?
Yes.
So we could specifically limit the boundary of the TIRZ to address the issues that we think might be forthcoming.
Right. Or you could expand it to address other issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
When I say boundary, I mean expand or contract.
Right.
Has ISAC or any of those groups out there brought any projects to
Yes.
with
Yeah,
respect
they have
to-
right. ISAC's been working on a list of projects. They shared that list with us for the bond program, the 2020 bond program, and we included several on the bond program that was approved ultimately.
So that ultimately will have a big impact on our decision here,
Yes.
obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. Delmar has never participated in this, or
Delmar participated from 2000 until 2009. Then they
chose not.
decreased yearly until they stopped contributing.
okay. Okay, that's all I had. Any other questions?
When do we need to, this is December of 2022?
Exactly.
So when would we need to make that decision by?
So, we can make it any time
Oh, at any
between
time.
now and December
Oh, okay,
of
anytime.
22. Yeah, it could be in some cases. Governmental bodies extend the life for TIRZ well before the expiration date.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we don't have to wait to that end point. In fact, I would recommend we
Right.
probably do something so we can start
Ideally-
planning.
Yeah, I was going to say, ideally, we would need to do it prior to the tax assessment bills going out, and so we would probably want to ideally do it by the spring of 2022,
Okay.
because otherwise, to make sure that our property tax collections are correct going into the
Right.
TIRZ, since it ends mid-tax year.
Okay.
And can I add, Chairman, if you don't mind, so one other thing that we would want to look at is the contribution from the city. The most recent TIRZ that we've done, I didn't recommend 100% of property tax contribution. So right now, this TIRZ has 100% of the city's property tax pledged to the TIRZ. We can do something less, and so the general fund still gets a little bit of the increment off the development, 75, 80, some
Exactly.
number we haven't determined it
Yeah.
yet. But just to put on, just to express that policy option, which is having less than 100% of the tax revenues going into the TIRZ, and then the general fund can get some of that for police, fire, roads, and that type of thing.
Okay. Okay, well, that sounds great, and I think it's appropriate that, we get all of our i's dotted, t's crossed, like Councilman Hernandez has suggested, to make sure that we are eligible to do this and that we can represent to taxpayers here in this community that we're moving in a forthright direction on this.
I have a question, might be a dumb question, but I'm kind of new and on a long learning curve. Now, the taxes that are collected, the property taxes, it's staying within the districts of the TIRZ. So I'm District 4, I live in District 4, so my property tax funding other projects within the city, or is my property taxes staying in District 4?
So
Sorry.
it goes into, those property taxes go into just the
The
general
general
fund.
fund,
And
and
then
then-
those from there are either used for the maintenance and operations of the city as a whole, or for the debt payments, the debt service on GOs or COs that the city has issued.
And then you're funneling some of that money into the different districts and the tiers.
I think she's talking
Different
about
boundaries.
what money goes into the TIRZ.
Yeah,
to be
that's
Yeah,
right.
the TIRZ, I'm
Yeah, so
sorry.
the TIRZ itself has a very defined
Right.
boundary. So this TIRZ is primarily along Park Road 22. It does extend out to some of the commercial areas around there. And so the increment produced by the growth, so you have a base year, which say the base year is $1 million, and now it's $16 million, just for
Gotcha.
so
Okay.
that increment between the million and the 15 million, the 16 million, whatever taxes are produced are then designated into this TIRZ and then used for the projects that are defined in the project and financing plan.
And Lori, that the TIRZ, this TIRZ that we're referring to is only on the island.
Yes.
So it's not Flower Bluff, even though Flower Bluff is 4, and so is, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're not going to take your island tourist money and use it in the Northwest.
I'm okay.
I've tried that.
I
They won't
live
let
over
me do
there.
it.
It's fine. I was just trying to
I'm
get
kidding,
my
I'm
brain in the right order. Thanks.
All right. Okay, anything else? Any other questions?
Sir, I just,
Yes.
if we're finished, I just need to confirm, Judge Canales, are you online? Just wanted to make sure.
Did we ever confirm,
Sylvia, no,
Yeah.
well, they're showing online, but they're not responding, so just for attendance purposes, I was hoping they would respond. So I have Judge Canales, Sylvia Tran Oliver, and Jim Needham are also online, but I don't
And would
hear
you
them.
note that,
Yeah, they're just
When-
not responding, but that's
not-
what they show, that they're
Okay.
online.
okay,
So thought I would try. Thank you.
okay, very good. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions, comments? If not, we're adjourned.
Okay, thank you.